The PS2 classic video game Kingdom Hearts, I had a lot of fun with this one growing up. Even more than 20 years later, it still is beloved by a lot of people out there. So the story of this video game, it follows Sora, a teenager who fights against the forces of darkness alongside Donald Duck, Goofy, and other Disney characters. And from there, it's certainly one of the best video games that was ever made. I certainly love this game for what it is because the story is so impactful. The twists and turns in the story were compelling, and the defunct video game developer Squaresoft was able to start this franchise, which is still going strong today. Which is not only impressive, but also shows the longevity of this franchise and how this video game brings back some good memories for people out there, especially for those who grew up watching Disney movies. Even though the gameplay mechanics haven't aged that well by today's standards, this is still a fun and simple hack and slash video game that I highly recommend, especially if you're a fan of Final Fantasy, Disney, or both. This was a great beginning of this series because Sora, he's just a teenage boy, growing up with his childhood friends, Kairi and Riku. Next thing he knows, he's the holder of the Keyblade and he has to fight all these monsters across the 10 Disney worlds. I do love this game for how it mixes in Final Fantasy and Disney. And even though I've never been a Final Fantasy fan, I always appreciate what that franchise was. I heard great things about it over the years. It is interesting seeing the beginning relationship between Sora, Donald Duck, and Goofy, simply because of how much adventures they have throughout this game. And certainly this ain't no short game either. It'll take someone nearly 30 hours to complete the main story alone. Plus the extras will obviously take even longer than that. Now, who is the main villain of this game? I really can't say without getting out spoilers. But I would say the Heartless is an interesting villain because that entity is one of the main focal points of this entire franchise. Now, it may not show up in every video game, but it is the key component of what draws Sora to stop that threat in the first place. Certainly, this game has aged pretty well. The graphics, they still look good for a PS2 game that came out all those years ago. The voice acting is amazing. It was great how they was able to get back most of the cast from the other Disney movies throughout the years to show up here. And not just that though, one thing I question is, why is some of the game has full voice acted cutscenes and then the other parts are silent with text on the screen? I always thought that was odd, even for a 2002 video game. It really couldn't have voice for the entirety of this game. Anyway, that's like a small minor complaint. But basically, this is one of the greatest video games ever made. It certainly is a cult classic. And if you never played this game, I highly recommend for you to check it out because it is certainly worth the effort. I'm giving this video game an 8 out of 10. Who would have thought Final Fantasy and Disney went so well together? And while I don't have any knowledge of the Final Fantasy video games, it is cool how they was able to take some of the characters and incorporate them into this game. Such a marvelous video game from beginning to end. I spent so many hours on this one. And even after all these years later, this is such an outstanding video game, especially in the storytelling considering how many Disney characters actually show up. And that is my review of Kingdom Hearts. Okay, leave your comments down below in the section and let me know what you think about this video game. Alright, this is Slim Guy 172 saying peace out.